and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding, and life. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. My guest today is passionate about empowering people to take charge of their life, their finances, and their business, and to experience more joy and contribute more positively to the world around him. He's a husband who is still learning to love, a proud dad, a business coach, a financial advisor, and the director at Purpose Advisory. Tristan, welcome.
Thanks, Tracy. That was a nice bio, very short and kind of personal and straight to the point. It's good to be here with you.
Likewise, I am read your form. I'm so looking forward to our chat. I know we connected through LinkedIn, and I wanted to share that because so many people underestimate how powerful LinkedIn is and the great connections that it actually establishes.
Oh, definitely. So we'd started a direct messaging LinkedIn outreach campaign, and you were the first person I actually spoke with as a result of that. So that was quite the treat.
So good. It shows how powerful it is, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Tristan, I thought we could kick off. I'd love to know what the bravest thing is that you've ever done.
Oh. Okay, so it was clearly getting married, as in it's clear to me now, but it wasn't clear to me then. So when I decided I was going to marry Renee, I was 22. I'd just written a journal entry like response to a Facebook post or message that she sent me. And I sort of was unpacking my thoughts about friendship and love. And at the same time realizing, you know what, I've probably never really had a true friend. I've never really exposed myself vulnerably, and I don't really even know who I am, let alone probably experience love. And as I went to press respond or reply, whatever it was, I got this check in my spirit of like, do you want to do this? And I had only a half a second of like consideration. And I was like, yeah, for sure. So that was the moment. But I was just like boyishly naive. Like, yeah, of course I do. I've never had a relationship before. I'm 22. I've been very focused on the things that I want to do and kind of not paid attention to other distractions in my life. Had a beautiful, loving upbringing. So I didn't know what it meant to fail or to feel pain or to have to really journey through challenging times intimately with someone else and stick with them through the good and the bad. So I was like, yeah, of course, this would be awesome. Now, we've been married for 12 years. We've got 2 beautiful daughters, and we've been through some really great and really challenging times. And I guess the decision to keep with the marriage and to continue to invest into it and to choose to grow and to have to constantly like recognize I suck at a lot of things I thought I was great at and have to change, have to literally do things differently, which I don't like doing. That's been the actual hard part, which took the courage. But I guess it was all anchored in this moment where I clicked the button. I'm like, yeah, I want this. Like, this is what I'm pursuing. Because as soon as I pressed the button that day, I knew I was going to marry Renee, and I knew there was something divine to it, and I needed to just follow that path no matter where it took me.
Amazing. And I'm goosebumping as you're sharing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a powerful moment. It's like one of those sliding door moments that if I had the foresight of what it would mean, I don't know how it would have made me decide any differently. But I'm so grateful, Tracy, that I had this like unfettered naivety of like, of course, let's choose the higher path. Let's choose to learn to love in the face of pain and challenge, because that's been, I guess, I don't know what you call it, like a guide for me to live by ever since. And it's been a really helpful set of directions.
And something else you shared is that you said spirit kind of guided you. Would you mind to touch on your spirituality and how it's impacted your personal growth journey?
Yeah, so I'm a hyper rational person, so it's hard for me to talk about spirituality only because I don't know what words to use, right? But I grew up.
Anyway.
Oh, totally. We all have our own different experiences. Yeah. So I'm a Christian. I was raised in a Christian family. I still hold the same faith. I was I would self-define myself as somewhat Aspie, like, Asperger's, autistic. I like doing the things I like to do, and I get pretty intense, and I get very focused on what I like.
Yeah, you feel like me.
You're the same? That's good. I think it's so fun.
Yeah, same.
And a lot of us Aspies like get overly confident, right? So we're just so keen on doing our thing. We think it's the best. Anyway, my worldview, like a very loving God who'd chosen me, who believes in me, who'd forgiven me, and who has an incredible life in store for me, made so much sense to me. So that was an identity I built. I was at church 5 to 7 times a week, doing like helping out here and there, being in a group, being at a prayer thing, being at a worship thing, listening to the teaching, mentoring guide. I was all over that sort of thing, and I loved it. And so through my teen years, I was doing all these disciplines, which I've now in my 30s kind of realized they're all the disciplines that you kind of have to do. You have to like learn to meditate, spend time in silence, right? You have to
Yes.
ponder and process and think, reframe your thoughts to choose positive thinking, right? And overwrite a lot of the negative thinking that life and failure can teach us. I had to learn to create space and to connect with something greater than myself, and I have to do it corporately with others as well and connect with others. So I was doing all that stuff, and I had some beautiful spiritual moments throughout the time, like bodily, sensationary type stuff and visions and like lots of shared experiences that other people were having at the same time. I've had a few moments where I've had like a certain experience and I came out a different person from before I went in. So yeah, I've had a whole bunch of this kind of cool stuff. Been very blessed with that.
And is that through like a prayer session, if you don't mind me asking?
So I'll share one example.
Please.
Probably the most poignant example was when I was 22. I had recently met Renee, but she'd been overseas. So this was kind of like a 12-month period where we were doing distance relationship. At least I thought it was. She didn't think she was in a relationship with me, whereas I was like pursuing her, right? It's like a hopeless romance. But I knew I had this time to kind of work on myself. So I was trying to, I guess, do some spiritual healing work. And I didn't intend to do it that day. I was trying to help someone else that day, but I felt compelled to go forward after a church event, and there was some people praying, and this guy who I knew, who was a really lovely guy I respected, came over and prayed with me. There was music playing, and the guy who'd done the talk was still on the stage, like sharing things. But I went into this really amazing, like augmented reality space where the big auditorium we're in suddenly filled up with water, like very quickly. The water rushed from below my feet, went right past my head. And as it went through past my head, I remember feeling this like momentary concern of like, I'm about to drown, but it didn't stop. It just like rushed past me. And then all of a sudden I was floating in the river, right? And I was free. It was a beautiful sensation. I had all these gold swirls swirling around my chest, and I felt the warmth and the movement of it. And then some ripples came. I was crying. I had my arms up in the air. I think I was yelling freedom for a while. After like 5 or 6 minutes of like cool experiences like that, and God spoke to me a few times in that time, I lay down and spent like 20 minutes just in this really beautiful calm space. And then after I woke up, like I said, I was a different person. So I guess there was some prayer there. There was definitely this corporate experience of doing it with others. And the guy who had spoken, he wasn't just like a regular bloke. He was like a very skilled, he's called a deliverance minister. So he goes around and prays for people to have spiritual experiences. And what he did for the most part, like 45 minutes of just sharing story after story after story of people having transformational experiences. And what it did for me, at least, was gave me this amazing sense of positive belief, of this faith that something powerful can happen in that moment. And like, this is my understanding. This is my like analytical lens, you know, looking back on it, I can see that every part of that moment sort of set my body and my mind up to be open for something to happen. Even this hyper analytic mind that normally doesn't like to believe that there are powers outside of my control, right? So I was ready for something. And then this loving father-like figure came over to me, and he invited me into a space. And then I connected to the divine in a way that I knew how to do, just in prayer. Nothing too special. I just went to that place in my consciousness where I was open to whatever. And then this like out of my control thing just happened.
Wow. It's like I said, every fiber of me is like goosebumping. And Tristan, was there something that happened around the age of 22? Because it sounds like that was quite a pivotal moment. Or was that the moment that really changed things for you?
That was one of the key ones. So the main thing that changed was I went from not having felt pretty much any emotions for the previous 11 years to then being able to access like sadness and happiness and joy and frustration. And it was strange because for the first few days, no matter what emotion it was, I was just excited. Like even when I felt sadness or disgust for the first time, it's like a new flavor. You know, like if someone gives you like a random like Asian fruit that you've never had before,
Yeah.
like, wow, this is disgusting, but it's also amazing at the same time because you're intrigued by it. So all the emotions were like that. And I'd be talking with someone like you and I are speaking now, Tracy, and you'd share your story. And as you were saying things, I'd be getting these extra like bits of information and insights of like, oh, I think she probably also means this. And maybe this is what happened. And I'm like, have I got a superpower now that I didn't have before? It's like, no, that's just empathy. It's just like normal emotions. But I didn't have access to them before because I didn't know what mine were. So I couldn't read anyone else's. I was just trying to read cues for the previous 11 years, right? And learn what people might have meant or felt prior to that.
And have you found you've had another profound experience like that in your journey since then?
Yeah. So around that time at 22, there was about 4 moments like that within 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Some were more directly linked to moments of like forgiveness and healing and letting things go. Others were just in like a conference setting or like typically in Christian environments. They were all somewhat intentional. I was in an environment that was structured to be like working on your spiritual well-being, right? I've also had a few in my teen years that were also significant, maybe at 14 and at 17. And then since then, less so, like since 23, I might have had like 4 or 5 in total, really meaningful ones. But I've had a lot more little ones that just happened by the by. But they were pivotal. They kind of formed me, I guess, like enhanced my identity at the time.
And I'd love to ask your take on forgiveness, because I know some people really struggle with this and they might not be religious or whatever the case may be, but it sounds like you really have such a connection to spirit and yourself. I'd love for you to share your thoughts on forgiveness, Tristan.
Oh, wow. What an incredible question, Tracy. I didn't expect us to be talking about this today.
Is that okay? Sorry, we're going to talk about business soon.
No, it's totally good. Well, look, what we do mostly when we work with people is help them live a thriving life, right? And I think that of all the skills to learn, maybe forgiveness is the most important. That's my hunch. And I would like bucket forgiveness, letting go, suspending judgment. I'd say that they're all the same type of thing if they're not identical. In other words, the muscle that you need to suspend judgment on a decision, or when you ticked off because someone said something that offended you, the ability to be like, hang on, did they mean to offend me? Was that intentional? Is that really the case that I am a douchebag or whatever they suggested or made me think? Just the ability to be like, hang on, I'm going to let the jury stay outside for a little bit and just take in a bit more information. Just creating that space, I'd say is equivalent to forgiving. Obviously, forgiveness is a bit more follow through. You don't have to like accept and release and find love. But it's the same fundamental tool set. And I like to see things mechanically because it gets the stigma, the shame, the like, I'm horrible stuff out of it. So I see forgiveness, simply put, as the ability to, maybe let's frame it this way, to be like, there's a part of the information that's being shared to me, like whether it's what they did or what they said or what they didn't do or they didn't say. So part of that is targeted at my actions. So if I was annoying to my sister growing up, I was really annoying to her. She'd let me know often how annoying I was because she's this like beautiful, creative ADHD type personality. Here I am, some like nerdy, annoying, intense, hyper-focused autistic guy, right? And I would do things that you get under her skin that would irritate her, right? So she'd call me all these names or she'd say things. And I know like we actually have a cool relationship these days. But is she commenting on me as a person? Is she making me out to be horrible? Is that her intent? No, she's reacting to my actions. So I think a really simple thought is any negative communication is directed at your actions, always, only, never at your person, right? Our person is designed to receive nurture, and that's it. When you speak to your person, you say you suck, you're miserable, you're horrible, you're unworthy, you don't deserve that. We feel crushed and we do nothing good. The people who are able to say, stick it to you, I'm going to go prove you otherwise, they're the ones who are able to reorient that negative attack towards their actions and like, I'm going to be better. Because you said that, I'm going to prove to you I can be better. But they're not allowing it to affect their person, their identity. They either have a strong belief in who they are already, therefore who can challenge. Like if I know I'm loved, if I know I'm awesome and I look at myself every mirror and I see how good looking I am, and I tell myself, dude, you're epic. I did that with my daughter this morning. We're looking in the mirror. I was like, you are incredible. And every time I said it to myself, it made me smile. And Haven, she's only 2, right? So she's sitting on my shoulder and she's like, no. And so we're having this like game back and forth, right? And the more I did it, the more she like enhanced it. No. And then eventually I said, I am, aren't I? And then she's like, yeah.
Oh, cute.
And isn't it so cute to see the beautiful heart of a kid? But like we have to build a foundation that we are loved and lovable, and then no negative attack can affect us, right?
Yes.
But as a result of that, when a negative comment does come and people say things like, Tristan, you're so stupid, I can't believe you made that mistake again. Like, that's not commenting on my actions. That's saying me as a person is stupid. So I can easily take it verbatim and then respond or react. But that's my fear and that's my own shame that's reacting. So it's like, no, hang on. They're commenting on my actions here. Let's just take it for what it is, feedback. Now, that's all good and well to say, but that is literally the mechanism. And so forgiveness is the ability to separate the two and to go, no matter what I think they meant, no matter what they say they meant, that feedback was focused on my actions. And as a result, it's a gift. Yeah. They're offering me insight or opinion at the very least of like, at least one human in the world didn't like the way I did it. And I don't have to care, but at least I can do something about it in the future. And so to me, that mechanism of like putting things in the right box, let's put it that way, enables me to go, well, they're a human. They're worthy of love. I'm a human. I'm worthy of love. I'm no longer offended by them. And so do I have to like sacrifice my anger and vengeance and like, I don't want to have to like them. No, you don't have to engage in that narrative at all. Forgiveness is nothing to do with that. To me, forgiveness is a realization. It's a new perspective of, I misjudged, I misapplied. Now that I see it differently, I have no animosity towards them.
Yeah.
I still wish things are different and I can make them different in the future, but they're not attacked me as a person. Therefore, I'm not going to slander them or not going to think ill of them. And in my experience, it enables me just to love. Not that I'm doing like, I'm not trying to pretend like I'm like a saint and I love everyone all the time. But I think when I get down to that mechanism, I can see it for what it is. And to me, the hardest place to do this is in intimate relationships and like close friends or like family members or your wife. When they say something that, they know better, they could have been way more caring or understanding, but they didn't. It's like, that's how dare they? That's because our person is reacting rather than us looking at our actions. So anyway, that I probably waxed on a bit longer than I needed to, but I feel like that simple skill is probably the most simple thing to change someone's life from suffering into genuine joy and a great life.
Yeah. And I found, when I've, forgiven and kind of moved on, you almost feel lighter in some ways because I think you almost torment yourself by kind of mulling over, depending on the severity of the situation, of course. You just feel so much freer when you do actually forgive and let go.
Yeah, well, that's right. Like it's like seeing the world from a different lens. And maybe that's the hardest part when you see through red, like, you're angry, you're ticked off. How dare they? When you're in that frame of mind, you're definitely not free, right? And obviously it's nice for someone to be like, hey, you could feel so much better if you just forgave them. But typically that only makes you more irritated. Like to me, the magic, like what makes my work, my vocation so interesting is what is it that gets someone from where they were, pain, suffering, anger, vengeance, to a place of freedom where they can now start focusing on making things better and not have to, react.
And I'd love to know, because I mean, a lot of business owners, some of us have that spiritual side, some don't. I mean, I'm all for raising the stakes of my life and believing in a higher power.
Cool.
How important do you feel is having that spiritual connection when you are a business owner? And let's face it, the load that a business owner carries.
My little one's just coming to the call. Hey guys, I'm in a podcast at the moment. Do you want to have a quick kiss, David?
They can say hi if they want.
Oh yeah, you can come over and say hi. All right. This is the little one that we were talking about earlier.
Who do we have here?
This is Haven. Do you want to wave to the
Haven.
camera?
Want to say hello?
Yeah. Want to say hello, Haven? No,
Nice
don't
to
want to
meet
say
you.
hello. she could tell that she was on the limelight. Didn't want to be there.
Not chatty today.
No. She's got a really beautiful, shy personality. I didn't know if
Yes.
you'd realize it, but yeah. Perfect.
Oh,
You want to go back to Mama, darling? You can have a little play outside.
Yeah.
Outside, of course. See you soon.
the question I was asking was, how important do you feel that spiritual connection is, to have that spiritual connection when one is a business owner?
Obviously, I feel it's important, but that's because it's me, and I always
Well,
think I'm right.
same.
You're the same, right? And obviously, because we can attest to the benefit of it. But I'm trying to play devil's advocate, Tracy. I'm like, who out there is hyper successful from at least a material point of view without the spiritual lens to things? And I believe it's possible. I think you can be very focused on but just pragmatic solutions, or you can be driven by hatred. Like, I don't know if you're into Star Wars. Are you a sci-fi buff, Tracy?
I like sci-fi, but not Star Wars, I will be honest.
Oh, no. Well, look, modern Star Wars is mostly ruined, so I don't blame you. But like old school Star Wars had like the dark side and the light side, right?
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
There's power to both. And, light side Jedis have to use different techniques to dark side, and dark side have these cool, powerful things that you're tempted towards. That's part of the whole reason why people join the dark side. Why would you be a bad guy? Well, it's because there's power there. So I think like being a non-spiritual person, you can tap into just raw energy and anger and emotion. And whilst I might say that's actually somewhat spiritual, like the person that's doing it probably doesn't feel that way. So I don't think it's essential at all, not for business success at least. However, if you care about the impact you have on people, and if you want to live a flourishing life for you and your family, then there's no other path. I believe we're spiritual beings, and therefore we need to excel in our spiritual nature in order to have a good experience of life.
No, thank you for sharing. I was very curious to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. What do you think, Tracy? Do you think it's necessary?
I just think the load, like, don't get me wrong, having your own business can be very rewarding, and it's a way to, live your dream life and serve others. I do think the load that we carry is it's abnormal. Like, it's not like someone who's employed or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So for me, I mean, I've tried to live my life without God 3 times. I failed because I just feel like you need to have that higher, you have to believe in something other than yourself or other than something that's kind of, you have to believe in a higher power, right? Because I feel like during those times where it's really, really tough and it almost feels like it's impossible to rely on your own human strength to get you through, there is, well, for me, my experience, it has always been a higher power that always comes through for me. And I just can't imagine not having that as part of my life, because life is tough as well, and I just, when people say, they don't believe, they're kind of, which is fine. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Yeah.
But for me, it's been a very big part of my my business journey and my personal growth journey as well. So I feel it's very important. But again, if someone hasn't had it in their life, they might not know any better. So it's not an event for them.
So I think this is worth exploring for a bit, because some people are built really effectively. In other words, like their personality and their brokenness, their trauma is in such a shape that they're going to thrive. Maybe it's because they got that stick it to the world. Like, my dad was constantly pushing me and he never appreciated me, so I'm going to prove him I'm the best. Like, that sort of person, is going to have a painfully miserable life, but they're probably going to be extremely successful, especially if they're skilled and have like good intelligence and good nurture and a wealthy environment. So like that's very curious, because in the same way you can have someone who has a non-spiritual life who's very angry and doesn't have the right combination of skills or resources, and therefore they just experience pain and failure their whole life. The thing is that the person who experiences more pain is probably going to be pushed towards the spiritual sooner than the person who experiences the success and the pleasure, because the success and the pleasure is going to get them. It's like, we're somewhat simple mammals in some regards. If we get a reward, we'll keep doing it. So if we're constantly getting financially rewarded for being a jerk or being numb to our emotions, then we'll probably just keep going until eventually things start falling apart. And my life was like that in many ways. I was, not that I lacked spirituality, but I lacked a rounded experience of my body and my emotions. And I judged anyone that was emotional, including my family, or especially my family, as being weak and foolish. It was like, why would you want to be temperamental when you can just focus on what you got to get done and do a good job and impress everyone? And I
Mm.
had no bandwidth to tolerate anything else until I fell in love.
Oh.
And I'm like, there's a whole nother realm of life that doesn't work at all until you connect with your emotions, you find out what they are and process them. And I was a horrible, I wasn't horrible. I was just like a really poor husband. I had no ability to show care or affection beyond like external niceties. I knew how to be
Yeah.
friendly. I knew how to solve problems. I knew how to be long suffering, but I didn't know how to empathize. I didn't know how to hold space with my wife. I didn't know how to be courageous in showing vulnerability. Like I none of that. Literally done any of those skills. So I was like slow and late to the party.
And may I
So
ask
what I
you?
see with these, you want to go?
No, you go for it.
Well, I was going to say there's a lot of very successful business people who tend to find success in certain areas of life, but they just don't work it out in other areas. You know, intelligent, even some gurus, people that like have all the brains, but they can't apply the knowledge to get a good marriage or to raise incredible kids or, just to find happiness in themselves. You know, incredible psychologists who know how to solve everyone else's problems, but they have no joy or peace in their own heart, right?
Yes. And I'd love to ask Tristan as well. How did you? Was it Renee? Is that your wife's name?
That's my wife. Yeah.
How did you guys? Did you cultivate that through your marriage? I mean, divorce is at an all-time high, and I'd just love to know if you're comfortable. How did you? I mean, you shared that you didn't quite know how to hold space or show empathy. Was that kind of a journey that you kind of worked together on?
Yes and no. Yeah, so it's such an important topic. I agree, Tracy. I would say that Renee was my guide. She opened this whole topic up to me, and it was the love that I found for her which enticed me to jump over the wall. And she was she's a creative, very giving, very emotional being. So I was amazed. I was like enamored by her. She was like the perfect angel when I met
So
her.
beautiful.
It was great. I wish I could see it that way again. It's been 12 years since we got married, and it's hard to keep that beautiful image. It was naive, right? But still, it's nice to have all those good feelings. Yeah, you want to get back to that sometimes. But you know what? Because of the pain that she felt, so she had a challenging childhood and hadn't managed to work herself through it. I needed to get equipped. So I went looking for mentors and guidance. That's what I did. I mostly looked for like father figures. Because whilst I had a really nurturing, loving maternal relationship, my mom was awesome, still is to this day. And my dad's a quality guy. He was emotionally absent, just wasn't around. That's partly why I sort of blocked out the emotional world. That's why I judged it. That's why I stuck to my guns, right? Everyone's got a story and a reason. So I went looking for sources of masculinity and fatherhood which could feed me and nurture me. And so a lot of that growth happened in that space, both through my faith and also with these other people I was, growing, exploring with. And I was able to then, this is how I look at it. Sorry, it's a bit nerdy, but I then brought back these tools and strategies to our marriage to see how could I help Renee, or how could I open up more, and what worked and what didn't work. And I'd measure what works based off, were we able to resolve tension? Was I able to get a deeper level of connection with her? And was she able to move forward? And 12 years in, we definitely haven't cracked it yet. I've learned so many like amazing tricks and hacks. I feel like I'm actually a really great relationship coach, except that I haven't solved it yet. Like we're still we have a lot of tension in our relationship a lot of the time. And my wife's still not in a very healthy space right now. Just recently, we've gone through another, like an even deeper chasm than we've been to in the past. Probably the lowest point we've hit in a family in the last 3 months. And this back end of 2024 is all about healing for us. So whilst we're homeschooling our kids, we've put them both in care at the moment, just so we can have a bit more time for mum. And she's, I think, for the first time, really taking her mental health and this side of her journey seriously, rather than just giving, which is her way of dealing with it. She's like, you know what, I might have to work on me. So in my perception, Tracy, there's been a big lag between me really choosing and having to work on this and finding a lot of success and peace and freedom, and being able to help so many more people because of it, and still being able to help Renee, but not being able to do it as much together as I would love to. It's taken more lows, really, for us to get to that point where I think she's almost on board with the idea of, like, you know what, got to work on myself. There's no other way. I can't just keep hiding from it. You know what it is, Tracy? It's not that it hurts too much, because I think Renee's used to experiencing pain. She's got an incredible stamina for suffering. so much more. I'm not willing to go to the places of pain that she feels.
Oh,
I just got no
really?
desire.
Wow.
It's scary. It's heavy. It's intense. I'm growing my ability and my heart for it, but it's like, it's heavy. She's there a lot of the time. But it's
Yeah.
because we've got these two beautiful creatures, our two daughters.
Yes.
And it's how wonderful they are, that stimulus makes it so that there's no other way. You realize that you can't hide it. You can't put it on the shelf. You can't avoid it. Eventually, they're experiencing the pain themselves, and then they're probably going to perpetuate it if we don't walk on it ourselves. That's the biggest thing.
Yes, definitely. Firstly, thank you so much for your vulnerability. I actually believe it's a superpower that you have. And thank you for being so honest, because I think so many people, married couples, single people, people in general, we all experience these things, and then we take great shame in actually verbalizing them because, we think it's a failure of some sort. But the reality is that most people are going through some sort of trauma, or they're dealing with stuff from their past, or because I mean, marriage in itself is a very complex, beautiful creation.
Yes. Oh, look, totally. I had no idea. I thought I was the odd one out. I thought our relationship was the craziest thing. I really
Yeah.
believed our marriage was going to be perfect with no issues. We'd be a picture perfect couple,
Mm.
because I was always a picture perfect person in my mind. And why should relationships be any different? I didn't know there was a
Yes.
totally different skill set. I didn't know I sucked at it. I shouldn't say that. I didn't really suck at it. I just didn't have skills. I lacked
Yes. Yes.
knowledge,
Yeah.
wisdom, guidance skills, and it's taken a long time to catch up.
Mm.
So I've had to really repeg my expectations. And whilst that's been really helpful to I've found I can bring more peace to our relationship. I'm less defensive, less
Mm.
adversarial now. It's also important I believe, as a man, to lead.
Mm.
I'm not just there to drop all expectations. However it is, babe, we'll be fine. That's a space.
Mm.
There's a place for that. But my job is to be like, hey, we've got an incredible life ahead of us. We've been gifted, beautiful gift of our bodies and our minds and our relationship, and now our girls, and we're stewards. I love this idea of stewardship, taking care of
Mm.
these beings. They're not our own. They're others. They're other people, but we're here to care for them and provide for them and guide them. And so we are responsible to do this well. And I'm, in particular, as leader, as husband, I'm responsible to help you to heal, and to lead our family. And this has been a good thing and a bad thing, because when I want to help, I go into solutions mode, and I'm the strategist
Mm.
and the coach, because that's my profession, right? But
Yes.
I'm still learning, Tracy, what does it mean to be a husband, to lead, to hold space, to inspire, without becoming the solutions architect who's
Yeah.
pointing out all the things that need to change, and or trying to make stuff happen without empowering.
Mm. Yeah.
And these were not skills I developed at all. I'd say that only in the last 4 or 5 years have I started to properly lead our marriage. I think for the first 5 or 6 years, I was just like a blind puppy dog doing what I thought was right. And then things started to fall apart more. And then I went into defensive mode, and I was trying to set boundaries and trying to work on my own sense of stability and identity, and clarify what I think I should and shouldn't do. But I wasn't able to offer Renee very much. And probably in the last 3 or 4 years, I feel I've largely overcome my own limitations. But now I need to push further to be like, how can I be the biggest person I can be to love and serve Renee, to lead our family, for all 4 of us? And it's the most, to your first question, what's the most courageous thing you've done? I think continuing to commit to that journey, whilst, to be
Definitely.
honest, almost all my, not mates, but all the voices around me, all the other guys who I just debrief this sort of stuff with, heaps of business owners and friends and clients,
Yeah.
I'd say tens and tens of people, all come to a different conclusion. It's too hard. She won't change. She's too messed up. We're not right for each other. I can't do it. It works for others, but not for me. It's not worth it. They're all the conclusions people come to.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a part of me that is disappointed, saddened by that, especially because of the intention I've set. No, this is
Yeah.
possible. I actually believe it's a calling. That's what I feel I'm called to. But I don't think people realize how achievable it is. And so that's why I think I get the most out of I think that, no, I take that back. It's not that people don't realize how achievable it is. It's more that they don't realize how powerful it is, how the the way I feel at the moment, we chatted like before we started, Tracy, and you asked me, how are you doing? And I
Yes.
was sharing that I feel so energetic at the moment. Like the last 9 weeks, I've been doing way more than I've ever had to do before. I'm in dad mode, like way more than I normally am. And I love that, by the way, but I'm trying to run multiple businesses. I'm trying to help on different sides of the family. We're trying to like sort out a bunch more things around school and childcare and just all this like lifestyle stuff. But then at the same time, having to be present with my wife whenever she's having, like, she's in a rough spot at the moment, and having to step in and make sure we're both caring for our girls as best as possible. I'm on all the time. I don't stop. I sleep like 4 to 6 hours, like 6 nights a week. And right now, like in this moment, late in the afternoon, I feel like I'm floating. I feel full of energy. I feel peaceful. I feel amazing. Now, maybe I'm going to hit a wall and crash and burn at some point. I don't know. But for now, I feel like life has never been better. Genuinely, like I've never felt more on and engaged. And the moments I have with my girls are more beautiful than ever before. They're more precious. I have to value them so much more. I've fought harder for them than I ever had before. Like, I know what it's like to get lazy and have a couple of days where you just eat takeout 3, 4, 5 days in a row. It gets less and less enticing, right? Whereas when you've gone a whole month of like saving your pennies, and then you have a nice splurge meal, you know, that beautiful sensation of that, like, oh, I fought hard for this. I feel like that every moment of the day right now, that one meal at the end, because everything I'm fighting with. So my sense is that this, like what I'll call the harder road, the choice of love, that's what I'll call love is the harder road. So important. I'm not talking about affection. I'm not talking about like the ease of eros of like, which some people have relationships it's just like that, and like, God bless those people. That's actually beautiful. Why not? But if you happen to be in the situation that I'm in, which I know a lot of people in my world fall into, there's no higher path, there's no more rewarding path than choosing love, the path of love.
Oh, Tristan, I'm just absorbing everything you're saying. I just want to say,
I feel like there's a bit of a soapbox there. Like it's maybe it's a bit of a message I got. I think I'm processing something as well. But yeah, you're going to say
definitely like even seeing you speak, it's like you are plugged into another source, if that makes sense, and it's really beautiful to see. And I just want to say hats off. Like, I think, you know, the fact that you're choosing to honor your marriage, come hell or high water, that's very, very rare, because, you know, a lot of us will just say it's too hard and just tap out. So I think it's really admirable, number one, and really honor those vows as well, number two. I got another guest.
Yeah, she just popped in. I'm just looking at. Thanks.
But no, thank you for all that you've shared. And I really love that you've shared it from a man's perspective as well, because again, I think there's great power in voicing these things.
Yeah, that's true. I don't spend a lot of time in these spaces, so I don't know who shares these sorts of things. But I know that whenever Renee brings up this topic, all of her girlfriends talk for hours. And all my mates, I tend to, like, when we have these conversations, it's like at 1 a.m. after maybe 3 hours of talking about financial markets and politics, and you kind of got to get to that space where finally they're comfortable to go there, and then they'll unpack.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'd love to know more about Purpose Advisory and how you work with your clients.
Okay. Shifting gears just a little bit, Tracy.
I think we can talk for like hours. I'll have to get you back on next episode. Sure. I'm going to send you the link right up to the podcast.
That's great. I'm all for it. Well, maybe by way of segue. So we talked a lot about like the spiritual nature of our being and how joy, or I'd say even happiness, is a consequence of the level of responsibility they're willing to take and the purpose that's associated with that, right? So that's why we call the business Purpose Advisory. Our goal is to help people live the most fulfilled lives they can. And we believe that everyone has purpose. In particular, we've niched on working with people with ADHD. So I indicated a little bit that, you know, a few people in my family growing up have, or at least would self-identify, I guess, as distractible, right? It's a very common bad sort of thing. I guess 20-30% of people these days would say they have ADHD. And in particular, 30 and 40-year-olds, a lot of people who were not diagnosed growing up are sort of realizing, that explains why this and that, right? But almost everyone in my world is neurodivergent, so either ASD or ADHD. I don't intentionally do that. I just have this magnetism. I really love the ADHD personality. And all the elements of it. Like, there's a lot of mental health challenges that are associated with it. the D, like attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, that last D, what it means is if you're genuinely diagnosed with ADHD, it's only because you have the dysfunctional elements of the trait, right? Whereas there's a lot of people who have the personality that could be ADHD, but they don't have as much dysfunction, so they probably won't get a diagnosis even if they wanted to. But for those who are representing with things like, I know these aren't the official aspects, by the way, but this is what I see as the most common traits for ADHD: is self-loathing, this belief that they suck and they're unworthy and they can't achieve anything and they can't do anything right. The inability to get things done that they believe is important, to focus on things they find important but not as enjoyable. And then attached with that is the need, that almost the orientation towards others, the fixation to have to do things with others, and the inability to do stuff alone, which are very limiting factors in this day and age, in this world that we're in, this individualized world. They're the more dysfunctional aspects that lead people to come and work with us. So what do? We mostly help them with their money, with their business, and then with their well-being. So we're a financial advice, wealth coaching, and business coaching company. We use a lot of life coaching in the mix. We use NLP and hypnotherapy as a tool. We use a bunch of ADHD coaching techniques as well. And fundamentally, we try and bring fun into the equation. We make business fun, and we make wealth creation fun. We help people get clear on what matters to them. We help people experience really nice moments, whether that be in mindfulness meditation or in setting goals that they actually achieve that they care about, and then makes them feel pumped to do it again. So everything from the spiritual through to the practical. So we're pretty like a broad spectrum business. Some people come to us for one thing, some for the other, but we tend to attract that more niche, I guess, 20, 30, 40-year-old ADHD client who's maybe entrepreneurially oriented. They might have already run a business, or they might want to run a business, or they might be in the thick of a massive business which is going through challenges. And then we help them in multiple areas of their life.
And I'm a big advocate for advisory or coaching or mentorship in any way, because, having coaching, having an advisor has really changed my life. I guess, what would your words of advice be to someone who is perhaps a bit of a stubborn business owner and believes that they can do everything on their own? I know a few of them. What would be something they should consider when it comes to advisory? Like, what would your advice be to them?
Oh, yeah, cool. That's an interesting thought. If you're in business and you still think you can do everything on your own, then you got amazing resilience. Good on you. That's for one. Like you haven't fallen apart. Most people don't even start a business, let alone think that they can actually do it. So you must be crazy. Well done. Keep at it. Don't give up. Maybe though, what do you want to achieve? What are your dreams? Have you really written down what you want? Are you clear with what you want? Because if you're crystal clear on what you truly desire, and it's from your heart, and you've written it, and it's like the 10-year, what do they call it, the BHAG, or like the big scary goals, or like the big dream goals. And if you know that you're going to achieve it without anyone's help, then great. Then don't get anyone's help. I don't know many people who have actually done that, and those that do never think that they can do it by themselves. But maybe there are people out there that can. Like I'm waiting, Tracy, for the first $1 billion unicorn company. Sorry, I mean to say $1 billion unicorn with only one staff member, like with one plus AI. I suspect within maybe months or years it'll come. Because do you chat with ChatGPT? Do you have voice combos with it?
I have used it. It's actually incredible what you can do on it.
Yeah, it's my therapist. It's my business strategist.
I tried that
helps
as well.
me with my wealth strategy. You tried that as well? It's
good.
I
it's incredible.
Yeah, whenever I'm making an important decision, I'll always take my decisions to it. Sometimes written, sometimes spoken. I find the spoken conversations work better. You just take your phone out, go for a walk, turn it on, have a chat with it. And it not only can it give you the advice, it can be your advisor. It can do a lot of stuff. AI agents is a thing. So I guess in some ways there's a trick there, because you're not really alone. You're using the AI as a form of an advisor. But the point is, you don't need to pay a professional these days. There's so much free stuff on YouTube. If you watch Good Will Hunting, the character of Will, the really lovable guy, is famous for saying you guys are all at college and you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you could have got the same education for 30 cents in late fees at the library. And now we don't have the library. We've got YouTube with the most knowledge you could possibly want. If you want to learn how to do marketing and business, you can definitely pay Tracy a lot of money and you get an incredible result, and she'll do a lot of it for you. Not only will she give you the strategy, she'll do a lot of it for you. But if you're got the right character, You can listen to her content online, supplement it with a little bit of Alex Hormozy, and you can probably do 90% of it yourself. Now,
that's true.
will you do it? Well, probably not.
No.
No, like 99% of people will not do it.
No.
So that's probably the reality. But that's where you got to look at yourself. Like, am I living my dream or not?
No, that's definitely true. And I find with the advisor I have now, he kind of covers, the business side, being a human side, and the leadership side. And the
Great.
three of those really all work together. And I feel in some ways it's made me more rounded. I think that's what you were speaking about earlier. So I think it's important that those different aspects of not just being a business owner, but being a human are also covered, because I found from my experience, they're very integrated as such.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in having frameworks to understand the world. Charlie Munger, that's Warren Buffett's like sidekick, who passed away just recently this year.
Yeah.
He's a big believer in like maybe finding a handful of models for explaining the human mind, the emotional system, how the earth works, how the markets work, how businesses work, how marketing works. Simplified models like diagrams or simple graphs that can explain complex ideas into simple versions. He's a big believer of, if you can get a handful of these that work well together, then you can make sense of not just how to do one thing, but on how everything fits together. And to be a successful business person, you have to integrate a lot of fields. To have a successful life, you have to integrate everything. So I'm a big believer in taking the time to build some frameworks that help you understand. And one of the best ways to do that is to find people that have lived out the successful life, and you find out what they've used. How do they see the world? How do they explain things? How do they see relationships? How do they map out their marketing strategy? So one way or another, I think you do need other people. And it's fun, like working with someone else and getting to know their story, what makes them tick, hearing the backstory of like how they met their missus, and how they raised the kids and what mistakes they made and why they did it this way and how they do it differently. Like, to me, that's the funnest part, I think, of the
I agree. Hence why I started the podcast, because it's just, captivating that person's experience and their journey and their lessons that they've learned throughout their life.
Yeah, and, it's good. It's cool you're doing this.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying it. It's been really, really great. I would love to know, what has been your business, like in business, what has been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge, I would say, there's so many challenges in business. I think like learning to delegate was a big one initially. I did too much myself. And then once I learned to delegate, it was then finding out how to not be the bottleneck. Because I like solving everyone's problems and I'm pretty bright. I can get away with doing most things. So I did. But very quickly, you don't have enough time. Your email box gets completely loaded full. Like I get about 350 emails a day. And I have an EA that goes through it all. But there's still about like 8 to 12 that I have to respond to each day. That's still a lot, right? And I'm in meetings, 6 to 8 meetings a day, and I'm building tools. I build our tech stack from scratch myself with a bit of support from here and there. And I'm doing most of the sales and partnerships. Like there's way too much I'm doing. It can't all be me. And you can't build a business if it's all you. That's not a business. That's it's a sole trader. So I think I'm almost graduating from that. I'm at a point now where I'm learning how to lead others and recruit and then empower managers. And I think quietly I'm pretty good at it. I'm late to the party. So I'm starting a bit behind the 8 ball. But I notice I've got a good intuition for people, and I'm pretty good at empowering people when I finally get around to letting go. So they're probably two of the biggest challenges. And then following that, I would say, whilst I've become a very good salesperson, I'm not that naturally attuned to marketing and storytelling. My analytical personality if you've been bothered to listen to me this far in the interview, you know that I'm going to answer everything for like 5 or 6 minutes instead of just for 1 minute. And I'll explain the mechanics and the reasoning, which some people love. Like if you're listening, like, thank you. I'm so glad. Like, let me know what you enjoyed and what you want to hear more of. But there's probably the majority of people who don't want to hear all the reasons, or don't want the mechanics. They just want to be inspired and to say yes. And that's not my expertise. But as a business owner, I think if you're not good at marketing, even if you're great at sales, you're missing a lot of opportunity. So I think that's probably now that I'm sort of getting on top of the learning to lead and not be the bottleneck, I have more bandwidth, and I I kind of have two paths, Tracy. I see the easiest path is to focus back in on referral partnerships, affiliates, and mentorship. That's my thing. That's what I love, like empowering people. And you don't have to do much marketing. I can empower other people to be the front man and like support them and build them up. And, you know, get invited onto a beautiful podcast by you, Tracy, and like rely on you to do all the marketing for me. That's wonderful. And outsource it. I'd much rather do that, you know, but in some ways that's me copping out. And if I refer back to this choice of like the path of love, the path of love is the path of responsibility. It's the challenging path, right? It's the path that leads to death. And so I know at some point I'm going to have to properly tackle this idea of being the guy. I do, Tracy, feel that there's like a really significant book in me, maybe more than one, but I know at least one that's going to be like a memorable 100 years from now style book. And I suspect it's a bit further down the track. Oh, you feel the same? Well, thank you. That's nice of you to say. I've started about 7 books. I've built a few book outlines, but I've never really committed to doing it. No, I've not really engaged with the task. Every time I've got sort of like insecurity thoughts of like, I'm not ready yet. I don't have enough. Like there's something's percolating in me and it's not fully baked. There's always been that vibe. And the same has been the case whenever I've been like, you know what, I should just start recording videos of myself every day. Like I know I've got things to say. I need to sharpen my speaking up, but I should just get to it. Every time I get this same sort of feeling of like, not ready, not yet. I can't quite tell how much of that is just insecurities versus maybe there's something to it. Maybe I just need to like stick to my strategy that is working, the referral partnerships approach, stay a bit more in the limelight. Is that what you call it? Like stay behind the shade a little bit and give it its time. Because I do believe that every idea has its time. And I'm the type that often rushes things. So I'd be very happy to let kind of some sort of fate-based mechanic decide when and if I start being in people's social media feeds like every other day. To be honest, this is more of like an afterthought justification, but I don't really want to engage with that world. I don't like what social media is for most people. I don't think that being part of the system, even if I'm marketing and good services, and maybe even creating like an opportunity, like if I was on your Instagram, I'd probably choose something like I'd create a satirical persona where I'm this guy who wants to live a great life, but he's too stuck on social media doom scrolling that he never starts his business. And I'd try and make that be like a funny enough reason to make you laugh, but also make you think maybe I should stop doom scrolling. But I can still imagine that nine people out of 10 will just laugh and then scroll on to the next one. And then I've just like fed the beast, you know what I mean? And I don't know. I don't know if that's just a hang up or whatever, but I don't like where social media is. I'm very intentional about protecting my girls from that world. I want them to be strong and capable people before they get any exposure to it. And I don't think that the human race is ready for what we've created. I don't like being protectionistic, but we need to have better controls on that system, or we need to empower our kids and even ourselves to be better versed to deal with it because we're ill-equipped. This technology is beating us. It is.
Just saying, I was absolutely captivated by what you shared in the beginning of the podcast and even now, but I really think that social media is a way for us to make it somewhat a better place by sharing the messages that we have and the views on the world. And it was really powerful what you've shared today. So I'm all for your shorts on social media. And I think the world needs it, to be quite honest, if that means anything. But yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Do you feel you produce content? You produce good quality content. I like the stuff that you do. You got a great persona, great energy. do you feel that like wariness at all, or you're not fazed by that? You're just happy to like it's part of the system. Everyone's doing it. Why not make it the best you can? Something like that.
What was the first part of the question? Sorry, Tristan.
Well, yeah. Do you feel any uncertainty about being part of the system in that way, like feeding other people's whatever?
I think for me, it was more just putting myself out there. I think it was more the judgment from others. But I reached a point in my life probably a year ago where I'm probably about 95%, like I literally do not care because I know there's one person that I could potentially, whose life I could touch. And that was the whole goal with the podcast as well. I thought to myself, I'm completely out of my comfort zone. If I help one person, that's made it totally worth my while. And the amount of messages that I get of people thanking me, and I'm like, this is why I did it. So, and it kind of made me push past that nonsense in my own head of, what if my hair's too curly, or what if my, all these stupid things that we tell ourselves, or what if my yas put people off? And I'm like, I really don't give a shit. So I do need to do more, but it's just finding the time. Time is my beast at the moment. and I need to delegate more. But once I got
Yes.
past the thing that the story that I kept telling myself, I feel like it's a way I can be of service to others. And of course, you're going to get the haters and people who pass stupid comments, but that's only because they're on their own journey and they perhaps haven't dealt with their childhood trauma or something like that. So I've
Yeah.
kind of moved past that. So I do think while social media has got a lot of negative connotations, I do think it's a very powerful platform. And of course,
Yes.
because we are in the branding space, it's very, very, it's a powerful way to get, your audience to know you, like the person behind the logo as such.
Of course. Yeah. Like there's no better way to reach people that would never ever heard of you, seen you, all that sort of thing. And you know what I'd love, Tracy, is if you could engage people in a way on these, like for example, TikTok. To me, that's probably one of the worst platforms in terms of like sucking people in and like, perpetuating ideas and even like a mode of thinking, which is not helpful, like this short-term satisfaction dopamine cycle, which is really unhealthy for adults as much as kids. But if I could like create a TikTok account and engage with someone in such a way that it leads to action more times than not, that'd be enticing. I just get a sense that that's not largely what these platforms are. And the few times that you entertain people, like what I've noticed, this is a more practical example. As we've started to do a few shorts and reels and things like that, you talk with the algorithms, like, what should I do here? You're going to get these prompts towards engagement. And what are you going to end up with? Like boobs and bums, money, like giveaways, like extremities, like even like taking photos of yourself, like with your face exploding and like shock horror and like all these thumbnails. They're the things that work. So it's not just that the message that you're putting out there can't be wonderful. It's that in order to reach the majority of people, you kind of have to like let your, I don't know if you call them ethics or morals, you have to let your standards slip a little bit to play the game in order to get the reach, because everyone else is doing it and you fall behind if you don't. And the algorithm rules what you should be doing. And I know that in theory, the algorithm's just an expression of our own what do you call it? Neurological system. Like the way that we respond to things is what the algorithm learns to feed. So it's our own vices that we're feeding into, but I don't want to play that game or be incentivized, because it's not me doing it. It'll be my team that'll be doing other things. And I could tell them, hey, like, let's play by these rules and whatever, but then it just won't work as well. And consultant will come and go, hey, you're going to have to make this more edgy and do this and do that and make that and that. I'm like, okay, fair enough. That's how you play the game. I would just love to find alternate ways that don't require it. And that's why this alternate path of just focusing on referral relationships, which by the way, that's how a business is built. It's from existing clients and referral partners like accountants, mortgage brokers, other financial advisors, psychologists, you name it, just professionals, yourself, marketing people. You get better quality, better aligned leads. Not as many, admittedly, nowhere near as many. But then there's a human trust aspect, right? And if you can do it well, which I've done it reasonably well, but I've never doubled down on it. We're in a phase now of starting. We're hiring a BDM for the first time, like a business development manager, to really run that side a little bit better. We're considering doing a podcast like what you're doing, Tracy, to help assist in that sort of thing. But I would love to hope that is something we can do really solely at this point. I know of a couple of referral partners we work with who have no website, no social presence, but they connect with people who connect with people and spreads out. And to be honest, there's something about that just attracts me. There's almost like I don't know what you would think about that as a brand strategy, because it's like a non-brand, but it creates a sense of brand, right?
It was. Oh, I know. I had a client who wanted to stay under the radar, and I was just like, oh, a bit like, like what I've just shared about the powerful stuff that you're sharing. He is brilliant at what he does, and I was like, you're too great at what you do to stay under the radar. And whilst it might create some sort of brand, and you might have a handful of people, I believe that God's gifted you with his talent to help so many more people, and brand and having that presence, a website, for example, being on social media, it kind of just expands that opportunity to serve more people. So that's my view on it. However, I'm in the branding and marketing space, and I also think, when people do meet us, we've all become professional stalkers. So we go onto LinkedIn, we go onto a website, we go onto Instagram, and the more that person finds crickets, the more we kind of go down on that credibility ladder. So I guess it depends on your goals. Like if you're happy just with 5 clients and that's your main goal. But if you're like myself, who wants to literally become this, are you familiar with Bunnings? It's like a hardware shop,
Oh
that's
yeah, it's a
everywhere.
big one in Australia. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, if you're like me, who wants to become the branding agency like Bunnings is of hardware, well, then you
Yes.
can't stay under the radar. And because I have a heart, I really want to serve not only my clients but also creators, because I know how hard this industry can be.
Yes.
So again, it depends on your goals. If you're happy just under the radar serving 5 people, then that's fine.
That's a cool perspective. No, I think it's great that you got like, obviously you got to back this because it's your industry, but you got some good arguments there. The thought that just came to mind as you're saying that is like, it sounds like you got a Christian faith as well. Is that fair to say? Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I grew up Christian. So like I often think about the way Jesus did it. So he was the best marketer because he seeded ideas that 2,000 years later are like the most prolific belief set and have transformed the world, mostly for the good, right? I know it's good and bad out there.
Yes.
But what was his strategy? He picked 12 and one of them he messed up with. He did 11 well and I had to replace the 12th one. Being Judas. But that was it. And whenever someone had like a raving review, what did he tell them? He said, don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to take this too seriously. I'm kind of just musing this on the spot.
An interesting perspective, though.
Isn't it? Like, he wanted potency.
It,
he wanted to impact on a very deep personal level, and he wanted a maximal amount of the caliber of what he was sharing to be embodied and then passed forward. And this is one of the limitations, let's put it, of social media is that you're only getting a very thin slice. And the majority of people will pick up what they pick up and run with that and not look further and not dig deeper. Not that that's a bad thing, but it definitely dilutes. And maybe it depends on what sort of message. Like if you just want to sell a single item, it's like a widget on Amazon, like no issue, no shame. Just like get them to buy it because then they'll only know when they buy it, right? But when maybe this is, I'm still kind of musing on this, but because what we're trying to express is, it's got multi-layers to it. It's got so many different parts of life, wealth, business, spirituality, life and emotions, relationships. And it's something that you can only encounter in a human lived way. There's more credence to the idea that you want to take it slow and do it as best as possible to maintain the purity of what you're passing on. I don't know. That's just the thought I've been left with from this conversation.
Yeah. But thanks for the perspective, with Jesus and the disciples. I never really thought about that. It's just something to think about, really.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, like there's an important place for branding strategy in this world. And I think Jesus was quite the branding expert. He was very intentional about who he spoke to, who he hung out with all these tax collectors and sinners, right? And he did it publicly. And he got a lot of like the religious types really upset with him. And I don't know exactly what he was intending, but you can tell there was an element of strategy to that. Even like that, there was this one scene, if you know the one where like he was ticked off at all the religious people selling goods in the forecourts around the church, right? So he sat down for like a few hours and he made this whip. So yes, he was ticked off, but he didn't go in on a rage. He like sat down and like hand whittled this like multifaceted whip and then went in and made a complete scene. And he's like this pretty savvy guru guy who was, had good emotional control. So he did that all very strategically. Like he was totally creating a brand. And, often he'd teach with parables. He'd tell these stories that no one understood, mostly to confuse people so that only a few people can really get the message. Like all this stuff, he was constantly pushing away, making it harder, like creating a mountain for people to climb so that only those who really hungered the most would get to it. Now that can come across as mean and like cruel and like, oh, why didn't you make it easy for people? But at the same time, he was the best marketer that's ever lived. No one's shared a more potent idea. Maybe like Plato and those other guys probably were also pretty good, but they just wrote it down. They didn't have to do the marketing. We've done it since, but whereas Jesus got the idea spread across the whole earth to the point that it's transformed societies. So there's something to that. I've never really thought about this topic before, Tracy. So seriously, it's nice to have you here because it got me. Maybe I'm sure there would be.
Because I'm like, there's your book.
Oh, it could be. Well, I'm not the marketing pro, so I shouldn't be talking about Jesus, the marketing strategist.
Just the perspective that you're sharing on it as well. I'm going to have a look at his book.
Yeah, that'd be good. Let me know what you find. I'm sure someone's unpacked it. I'd be curious to see like what the modern day lessons to learn from that.
Yeah.
That example.
Because I've never really thought about it until now. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, that's good.
Tristan, I'd love to know before we wrap up, if you could go back to your 22-year-old self and you could share some words of wisdom or one bit of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, no one have to answer quicker. I don't know what I would say now after all the things we chatted about. Like there's a part of me that would like tell it what trade positions to take in the markets and things like that. But I'd also, I would just encourage myself a lot. Not that I lack that, but of all the things that I would want someone to do to me there, I think nurture. I'm still learning this in the work that we do with our clients. When people come to us, they're in a vulnerable place. They've typically just got a diagnosis and they're on meds for the first time, and they now have bandwidth. And so they want to talk about money for the first ever time. They've probably not even saved a penny, or they're earning like $120,000, but they've been living hand to mouth like the whole time.
Yeah.
Some actually have a mortgage that paid off stuff like that, but largely they've not ever focused on investing or the money at all.
No.
And of all the things I've tried to do with them, help them feel good, help them find fun, and then make sure they get wins. They're like the three most important things. And all three are a form of nurture. Like help them feel good is me encouraging them and supporting them, and I'm pointing out the things I see that are good, that are true. I don't make it up, but like I help them identify things that are good. And then like helping them do something and succeed in it, and prove to themselves they've actually got what it takes. That's like, it's so invaluable. So yeah, I guess I just want to do that. If I was like like a 36-year-old version of myself and I couldn't recognize myself, I'd just spend a bunch of time with me. I'd invite me out for a bunch of meals and just invest in me and spend heaps of time loving and nurturing me, because I would know exactly how to love myself well. That'd be fun, actually. Just like love yourself. Because isn't that what the healing process often is? It's the ability to respect and value ourselves, see the gold in it, and then like affirm it, affirm the beauty, the value that's there. Help it to grow. Prosper.
Definitely. And that self-worth as well is, if you don't have that, and my personal journey, I've been really working on this because I didn't have a lot of self-worth, and I'd always say yes all the time, or kind of, accept or tolerate things that I probably shouldn't have. But by really working on that, and I guess stepping into a more powerful version of myself, I have very hard boundaries now with things I will and will not tolerate. And also having that self-respect for myself as well, because otherwise you just become a walkover.
Yeah, I've been a yes man for a long time. And even when you're confident in yourself, you become like such a limited version of yourself, right? You get overworked, overloaded. You can't do anything well.
No.
And yeah. No, I know that feeling. Out of interest, what was it that enabled you to get that shift or that turnaround?
What sort of started it, you mean?
Yeah.
It was actually working with my advisor. I think it opened my mind to things I hadn't really thought about. And again, by having those sort of different, I want to call them pillars or frameworks in place, it started opening my mind to, like I said, things that I kind of, I was uncertain about myself. And through doing certain frameworks with him, built my confidence within myself. It could be delivering a big proposal and I think, oh my gosh, not in a million years will I close this thing. And then actually having someone who takes the time to guide you on how to deliver that proposal. And, I nailed it. I closed it. And it's just little steps up that ladder that kind of increase that confidence in oneself. And you do realize that there's a lot more to, this sounds really simple, but there's a lot more to you than you actually think. And I can do those things, like you mentioned before, helping your clients achieve those goals, or realizing the possibility that lies ahead. So that's why I'm a big advocate for advisory, mentorship, coaching. I'm like, every human on the planet, whether you're a business owner or not, needs it, because, life is great and beautiful, but it's challenging at the same time. And it's great to have someone to bounce ideas off.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that so much. What a cool message. That's fresh for a marketer to have that like passion to help connect people with professionals and guidance and advice. Great.
Yeah, definitely. But Tristan, I've enjoyed our conversation so much. Thank you for being so honest, for your vulnerability as well. And I would love to have you back on next year.
Yeah, great. Let's do it, Tracy. We'll
Explore
some new novel ideas. You know what I really enjoyed? I liked how normally in a podcast, you feel like you have to say all these like pearls of wisdom. You helped me just feel comfortable to share a whole bunch of stuff. But also even in the last part, like exploring an idea live and on the fly is not something a lot of people are comfortable to do. And I
Oh,
think you made
really?
it fun and really brought it out. And I
Oh,
saw things from totally different perspectives because I was speaking with you that I wouldn't have picked up otherwise. So yeah, this has been a great
oh,
experience for
thank
me.
you. Well, likewise. It was really, really great. And like I say, it's I just want to say like how proud I am of you and your wife because I know marriage can be really, really hard. And I think it's
Mm.
just so admirable what you guys are doing. And again,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, my pleasure. I hope that it helps.
It does. Great, Tristan. Thank you so much for your time.
Bless you. Ciao.